requested video. We were asked to do this video about raising smart children, or raising smart children from an immigrant's perspective. So I'm sure there are lots of parents out there that are immigrants in different countries like Canada, United States, Australia. We've had a lot of viewers from different places, and we all have similar challenges, and we're hoping that the tips that we present today will be helpful and relevant information, whether you have a child that is 2 years old or a teenager going to high school or before university. So welcome, Kenton.
Well,
welcome back.
It's nice you having me here. They're all in high school, in public school, and the oldest one is in the School of Science and Math at North Carolina, and the youngest is a freshman at public high school.
Yeah, and what we also have in common with you guys out there is that we're both from immigrant parents. We were both not born in the United States. Kenton was born actually in Vietnam, and I was born in England. So we both lived in other countries, although he's lived in the United States pretty much most of your life, right?
Right.
And I moved to the United States when I was 16 from Nigeria. So yeah, we're coming with a perspective that as parents who are raising children in the United States, but having been exposed to different cultures growing up. Immigrant parents deal with similar challenges. Number one, you're coming to live in a country where the culture clearly is a lot different from the culture that you've been used to, and so you're having to adapt. And your parenting skills or style will change along with this new culture. Of course, there's also the isolation from your family and friends. A lot of us coming from other countries are used to big families where you had your auntie, you had your grandmother, your grandparents, your siblings, and now you're in this new country where you might often be alone as a parent. So there are definitely new skills that you have to learn, or new challenges that you're going to have to deal with. Then of course, for some immigrants, there's the issue of English as a second language. Personally, I always spoke English. Nigeria was colonized by the British. You always spoke English.
No, but when I came here to the United States, I did started speaking Vietnamese, and my mother, her primary language is Vietnamese.
Right. So in relating to your mom, actually, that was a little bit of a challenge.
Right, exactly. And then also I had the experience of having an extended family on my father's side that were not very tolerant of Asians, specifically Vietnamese at that time.
Similar. We want to raise a successful child. And in this program, or in this setting, I'm going to define success as academic success, which in turn will lead to gainful employment. Obviously, from a personal level, success is a lot more than that. You know, we're talking about raising a child that has ethical values, that has a good moral standing, and all the other things, you know, that we deem as being successful. But for the interest of this particular segment or program today, I just want to say, when we're talking about success, we're thinking about academic success of your child.
Right. The focus is success in education.
Right.
And then the broader topic is success in life.
Right.
You know, so life strategies. But one of the key points of success in life is being successful academically.
Restaurant, for example, that's one thing we always did. You know, some parents like to stay home or go to places and then leave the kid home because they're afraid the kid's not going to behave accordingly. We always took the children out with us. I don't remember us ever, you know, leaving the children home because we were afraid of the kids' behavior. I can't stand spoiled kids or kids that don't know how to behave. And so very early on, we made it a point that, you know, discipline was important. In order for a child to do well in school or do well academically, they have to learn what it is to be disciplined and basically follow instruction. You can't you don't need a child that's disruptive all the time, that doesn't follow instructions, that's disrespectful. Of course, they're all going to try it. Every 1 or 2 year old is going to have a tantrum, but you need to nip that in the bud early on. And I'm not talking about, abusing your child, but I personally, believe that spanking early on is okay. And I'm talking about just a little pat on the hand or a little pat on the butt, but it's just not appropriate for me to have my child out in the street throwing a tantrum because they can't have that candy, or yelling and screaming in a restaurant. We just really didn't have that.
Well, I think the key thing too is that it's just not about just corporal punishment in itself. Corporal punishment is really the last resort. We actually rarely ever utilize corporal punishment. That's the thing about it.
I can't remember the last time we, quote, spanked the children.
The key is about expectations. It's about communicating clearly with the child expectations, and then follow through. See, that's the thing that's a lot of time is missing.
Right.
Is that parents will say, if you don't do this right, you're going to get in trouble.
They threaten the kid.
Right.
Hours after that the kid has done what the behavior.
Right.
No, you need to nip that in the bud right there and there.
Right. It has to be direct and immediate. So that way the child in their formative minds connect the behavior to the effects, because that's one of the key things is that the child has to learn that negative behavior or negative choices brings negative results.
Right.
And it has to meet it. But if you delay it or if you don't follow through, what that does is that it shows to the child that there are no boundaries.
Right.
And that's
important.
Right.
The kid needs to learn, or your child needs to learn boundaries. So I think early on, very early on, before the children were 2 and 3 years old, it was very clear who the boss was, who their parents were. We are not their friends, at least not at this age. We are their parents. We are the people that help guide them, but we are also the people that help discipline them. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you can't really talk about a smart, educated child without talking about discipline and focus and control early on.
See, and so that's the other thing too is that many times when people talk about children, you yourself as a parent has to take on that responsibility, and you have to adapt your behavior. So you cannot expect quiet children if you are yourself are loud and obnoxious, using vulgar language, cussing in front of their child,
or inappropriate.
Exactly.
Right.
Because they're going to mirror that.
Another key point in raising an intelligent or smart child very early on, and again I'm talking about children before the age of 3, is something as simple as talking to children. Unfortunately, a lot of parents may put their child, in front of the television, or put them with somebody else, or not really communicate with the child. I think it's very, very important that even before the age of 2, that you are talking to them, because the more they are exposed to vocabulary, the easier it's going to be for them to pick up language, and in turn do well in preschool. So talking, as simple as talking to your child early on, is very important. Even when you think they're not listening or understanding, they're picking up and absorbing a lot of this information. Another point I would say early on, before the ages of 2 or 3, is imaginative play. It's very important even later in life for the kids to learn to play, to have simple toys available, blocks, paint. I remember growing up and being exposed to painting and creative arts, just to help their imagination grow. It also helps improve their social skills, especially if they're doing it with other children, because they learn to communicate with other children. Their emotional maturity is also being developed, knowing how to share, knowing how to, again, communicate or express themselves. So these are all very, very important early on to foster.
So part of setting the foundation is reading, and taking every opportunity to read with your child, and finding out their favorite books. The other thing is also important is to learning your child's learning key points. Some children, they learn kinetically, being active. Others are more visual, more oral. The good thing is that you have a whole variety of different types of books. You have books that actually can speak and sound and make noises. You have books that are also very visual. Anything to interact and reinforce.
And it's really important to start very early.
Right.
Very early. Before 3, they actually should be learning to read.
Right. But make it a ritual, meaning that it's like at a certain time in the day, it's reading time. Like bedtime's a good time, quiet time. But those are key things, to set structured time to spend with the child. Is that this is reading time, 30 minutes, 20 minutes. Even after a busy work day, especially, immigrant parents, single parents, you're working all the time. You're working hard, but those are the important things, is to go ahead and spend that time, make sure it's ritual every day into it, because that creates that love of reading.
Right,
and
you're trying to
vocabulary.
basically foster a very early love for education. You'll find that a lot of kids, especially in low-income areas, have trouble reading, and so they get to first grade, they're having difficulty, and now they are being basically, what's the term?
Tracked.
Tracked.
Yeah.
And so even you'll find kids by 4th grade that can't even read, but yet they're just being moved ahead because, unfortunately, there's too many kids in the system and they don't really care enough about your child in some cases, so they keep moving ahead. So it's very important, I think, as a parent, to really advocate for your child and start early. Instead of putting them in front of the television, that you are investing in some flashcards and books.
Games are simple too. Word games are very good. You can also incorporate music, because music is another way to foster with poetry. I don't think enough poetry is actually taught and reinforced, but they have wonderful resources out there in regards to combining music and poetry as well. And include also your culture. That's the other thing too, is sometimes when you're in a new culture and you focus so much on the education, but you should look at ways to incorporate your culture as well, especially to encourage your child to experience and be multilingual or bilingual. And that's a great way to bring in
I think some of that is being lost, that unfortunately some immigrant parents shy away from teaching the child their native tongue. And I think learning to be multilingual is is an important tool to have. I remember growing up, I used to speak several languages besides English. And unfortunately, now that I've lived in the United States for so long and haven't, fostered that, it's something that you lose. But I definitely think it helped me learn faster by having to already have different languages. Now, you didn't learn to speak anything other than English, did you?
Well, no, I spoke, by age of 3, I already had some basic language skills in Vietnamese and so forth, and talking and stuff, but like I said, which is a topic for another vlog, but basically about there was immense racism and prejudice towards my mother from my father's side of the family in regards to that, and it kind of like echoes kind of like the atmosphere right now about English first and anti-immigrant feelings that are occurring right now. So it's funny how history kind of resets itself.
How history repeats itself.
Right.
Important early on to praise your child. Make sure that you are praising your child's efforts, not just accomplishments. And also praising them and showing them affection. I think it's very important, that your child know that they are working hard, and that working hard is something that you value, and not just doing things, perfectly. Sometimes as moms, let's say you tell your child to go clear up the table or set the table, or accomplish a task, and they don't do it perfectly, and you think, well, it's just easier for me to go do it myself. I think it's very important that you allow your child to try, and also praise them for trying, at least putting in the effort. so that the child learns early on it's about applying themselves, and that, you know, things may not be as perfect as they should be, but at least they applied themselves and should be rewarded or recognized for that effort, because you're trying to raise confident children. In this society, it's very hard, and they're going to be, you know, up against so many different things. So it's important to start at home, raising them to be confident.
And as confident as possible. But also the key thing in what you just said is also building resilience. Resilience is also a key principle, because it's like anything else. If it doesn't work, keep trying, keep trying. And so you praise them, saying like, you know, keep the effort up. But at the same time, you gotta say like, but if you, it's just not enough just to keep doing the same thing. You have to keep pushing, just like when you start a new business, when you write a book, when you do anything. You know, it's not always the first time around it's going to happen. You just got to keep plugging away. And that's always this persistence and focus and resilience, which leads then to the other thing is delayed gratification. They said besides in the Reading Foundation, but one of the key things that when they do early childhood studies that they can track is the ability to have delayed gratification. Those that are able to delay gratification have a higher rates of success in later life. Just like college. College is a big delayed gratification. It's 4 years of hard work to get that diploma. It's the same thing with graduate school, the same thing with a job. You get a job, you're not going to hit that executive level on the first go try for most people. What's going to happen? You're going to have to work yourself up. Well, if you don't have the ability to delay gratification, you just want the immediate fix.
Right.
Guess what? You're going to make the poor choices, bad decisions.
Because you want it now.
You want it now.
You want it.
So you're going to cut corners, whether legally or illegally. It's the same thing with relationships. Instead of working and building a relationship, you're just looking for that easy
Quick
comfort, that, you know, exactly, that immediate gratification. And that's
significant chores, whether it be washing dishes, or taking care of the animals. Before we moved, we used to have a lot of animals, and so our children knew after school that they needed to come home and feed and take care of the animals. Whether it be working in the kitchen, helping us to cook. These are all things that, or skills that I think are going to be important for them later. We've had the children filing for us in the office when we had our medical business. So I think it's very important very early on for your children to learn to contribute to the family and learn the ability to work hard.
If you want the results that you're looking for the better life of your family, but most importantly your child, you got to get involved.
Right. There is no quick, easy answer. You've got to get involved. You have to be your child's best advocate. And one thing I haven't mentioned yet, too, as people of color, I think it's really important sometimes to recognize that even though you're in a country that may have better resources than where you're coming from, for example, let's say in the United States for us, I think you have to be aware that there is some level of prejudice or even indifference to your child when they are a person of color. And I'm not saying this is obvious in all schools, but I would say in majority of schools, if you're a person of color at some point or another, you have come across an issue with some level of racism. I know for myself personally, when I first came to the United States, I realized that as a minority, the standards were a lot lower for me. Just as a black female, you know, we're not expected to perform as well as your average white person. And it may not be said implicitly, but it's certainly very obvious when you are not given the same opportunities, you're not presented with the same resources, and you have to dig further to find out what is out there for you. So I think it's really important as a parent that you are your child's advocate, because you're not always going to be given the information. You're going to have to go out there and ask. You're going to have to talk to other parents. You're going to have to look things up for your child and feel okay doing that, because who else is going to do it if you don't?
Right. And again, it can be a challenge when English is a second language. So the key thing is that look for partnerships that can help you, for example, at schools. Even though many schools that are progressive, if you're fortunate enough, they'll have an ESL coordinator that will work with you and guiding and developing a program for your child as well. Many schools will also teach. They have surveys. Don't ignore those surveys from those schools that ask if English is a second language.
Like taking your children to the public library. The kids always had a library membership, and that started very, very young. They love going to bookstores now, so we often go to Starbucks just to hang out because the kids just love going there.
Starbucks, that's in Barnes and Noble.
Or Barnes and Noble, sorry, Barnes and Nobles.
Yeah, we go to Starbucks.
We go to Starbucks. They go to Barnes and Nobles for the books.
But they go up and get the books.
What else did we do with them?
Well, again, looking around different areas, but in North Carolina, we have a very good museum system that's mostly free to the public. Museum of Natural History. The aquariums were very modest in fees and stuff like that.
Imaginariums, I remember taking the kids to.
Yeah, those are private museum types, but those again many times have modest fees just for the general admission.
Right. Even the zoo, I think, taking your child to the zoo is a very fun educational experience.
But the critical thing is that not just taking them there, it's what you do after the zoo.
Right.
That's the other thing, is about reinforcing those lessons or experiences. Well, what did you like? Well, was this good? Was this bad? What was more exciting? And then having, let's go to the library and get a book about the penguins. You liked them so much.
Right.
See, it's about, again, instead of making these reinforcing, instead of making these singular experiences that just get lost in time, they become reinforcement. And then you learn more about your child. Again, this is a relationship. As you learn more about the child, you'll learn what their interests are, what they want to do. And
perhaps you're an immigrant parent, but you're also a single parent. And I really applaud you, because I think that is very, very difficult to raise a child, period. I think ideally it is best to raise children, and this is just my opinion, it's best to raise children in a two-family household, but it's not impossible to raise them in a single family. And when I say two-family household, two-parent household, yes, I don't mean just mother and father, in the traditional sense. I think if you have two parents that are loving and supportive, regardless of their gender, I think that that's important for a child's development. So back to a single parent, I think it's clearly very challenging, but it is definitely something that can be accomplished. What is important is that you find a support system, find a group of other single mothers that you can sort of collaborate with, that you take time to do things together with, or you take basically turns helping to watch the children or do activities together with. You also, I think it's important, you're in another country, to find a network or a group of people that are as supportive as you are, like a village of people. The saying, it takes a village to raise your child. I think that's true regardless of where you live. It really does take a village. In our case, we always had my mother was always supportive and always there, but over the last 10 years we actually have been away from both our parents. We've been removed from our relatives, so we've had each other to lean on. But again, I think it's very important to find other people if you don't have a spouse. Then there are organizations out there. For example, in the US, you have Jack and Jill of America, which is a great organization that helps mothers and their children from the ages, I believe, of 3 to 18. And they help do leadership or promote leadership opportunities and philanthropic opportunities for your child. So you have to look and find out what meaningful organizations there are to help support you and your child, because it's definitely not something you may want to do by yourself.
Right. And again, speaking for also single fathers out there as well, which is even a smaller percentage, it's also important, again, to create structure. Structure is very key, because again, with time constraints of work and financial pressures and social pressures, it's important that you spend quality time. It's not just about quantity, but it's spent quality time focusing on opportunities and activities that promote education.
So the good news is that most immigrant children perform better academically than children of a similar background. Of course, if you have a child that's privileged or coming from a privileged background and also happens to be very, dedicated to education, then that child might have an upper hand. But in general, immigrant children perform a lot better. Now, why is that? But before we even answer why immigrant children happen to do better in general, do you know what immigrant group performs better academically in, let's say, the United States?
You asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
I don't know.
Like when you think
Asians.
When you think of Hispanic, when you think of immigrants, you think of Hispanics, you think of Asian Americans, you think of, and when I say Asian, I mean, Chinese, Japanese, Indian, and you also want to include the Africans that are immigrants here. And you said Asians, right?
I just threw that out.
You just threw that out. Well, yeah, most of us think of, that really smart Asian student that's kicking butt in class. But believe it or not, in the United States, the most successful immigrants are actually Africans, believe it or not.
What? What?
Yep.
Represent.
Yeah, it really are. Most Africans, they say about 43%, according to the census, of Africans that come to the United States actually have a bachelor's degree or more. And specifically Nigerians, 2/3 of Nigerian immigrants have a bachelor's degree or more. Now, does it mean that all Africans are super smart? Well, no. I think there's a natural selection that most immigrants that come to a country already are smart and motivated. And that's why they're coming to the country, and that's why the country, like the United States, has allowed them to come into the country, because they are seen as contributing members of society. So I digress, but in our current days where the current presidential administration is so anti-immigrants, I think that's very, very unfortunate, because most immigrants are productive members of society. They pay taxes, they help feed our nation, they help build our nation, and are contributing members of our society. What are the reasons why immigrant children do so well?
Well, one reason is higher expectations, and that's higher expectations overall. So many times immigrant families feel that there's not enough homework.
Right.
When a child gets sent home, they expect to do more, to read ahead, to be able to achieve a higher level. In our own experience, like in our oldest son, in the school he attended, we had to actually fight for
several occasions.
Right, we had to fight for extra classes to get him online classes, and one of the instructors have said that they didn't want kids to get too far ahead. And so there's one of those limitations that sometimes the systems will put in place for your child.
They all that seems to matter for many schools is that your kid just about does what's average. And our expectation is that, no, my child is a lot better than average and can do a lot more. So it's really important that we challenge them and make sure that, again, we are our child's best advocate.
That's right. So that's why it's important that you find out what resources are available, because that's the other thing too, is that they don't publish these things out, about, for example, advanced classes or programs. Sometimes they'll just send it out in a little flyer and that's it. So you have to get involved so you can find out what resources are out there for your child to participate in, and especially when in the system that they're so quick to track kids.
Right. So it's really important that you raise the bar. It's not good enough to look at the curriculum and say, oh, okay, this is okay. My child is doing fine. He's passing. No, I want my child to do more than passing.
Excel.
They need to excel, and they need to learn early on that we expect them to excel because we know they're capable of excelling.
Right. Exactly. And so that's the reinforcement. and by doing that, you create a better level of accomplishment and self-confidence in the child.
Another reason is that a lot of immigrants are very hardworking, and I don't think that's just a stereotype, but I think because they're coming from a country perhaps where they've had to struggle and they are used to struggle, they come here with the expectation that this is going to be a better opportunity for themselves and their family. So there's this optimism that if I work hard, I can create a better life for myself and my children. So I think that is definitely one reason why I would say different from, children or families that already live here or were born here, have a sense of what is it to be hardworking and come from another culture and country.
Right, absolutely. Especially when you come from a place, say, for example, there are limitations, for example, in India and stuff, like caste system. You are born into a certain situation, and there's not a lot of vertical movement, education-wise,
right,
as well as just economically. So if you're born into a certain working class, there's very little chance that you're going to move out of it.
Right.
That's why they come to the United States. They know that here it is truly a land of opportunity, and if you take education and hard work and you put those things together, the odds are very much in your favor that you can change your circumstances, your future, and the children can see that type of hope and optimism, and they take that and they know that if they apply themselves, they can affect change. And many times by the third generation, what happens?
Another reason that most immigrants do well in another country is that they're coming with a sense of cultural tools. So for many immigrants who have come from, say, India or China or, like myself, Africa, you're coming with a different outlook about education. So, for example, teachers were people to be respected and looked up to, which is definitely not something that I saw when I moved to the United States, where kids were yelling and screaming and cursing. It was just completely different. So I think, keeping some of those values where your children respect their elders and respect their teachers is very, very important in their success in the classroom or as in education as a whole.
Absolutely. So even growing up, that was one of the key things, was that the teacher was someone we truly respected, but respected not out of fear. Respected this is someone that had knowledge, that had a depth of wisdom, that we were there to learn from them, to take guidance from. So there was that mentoring, and I'm not sure if that's just an Asian trait, but it was a value within our culture and Vietnamese culture, that teachers were seen in a very respectful, reverent way.
Yeah, no, I definitely believe that it's across cultures, in terms of ethnic cultures, that teachers are seen highly or regarded highly, just like you would say.
I enjoyed this video, and it found it to be very informational about raising a smart child, but also a child that is smart and intelligent in all facets of life, not just academically, but also utilizing life skills to be successful, such as in delayed gratification, being respectful, being able to problem solve, and so forth.
And I think what's clearly very, very important is, if there's any take on or anything that you would leave with, is that start early. Start early and let your child read early. So teach them to read early. Remove the television, or at least, cut back on the television.
And internet.
Internet, because if internet and watching television was a way to make kids smart, everybody would have smart kids. So clearly it's not in putting your child in front of the television. It's in presenting them with a book, with flashcard, with experiences, engaging them. This is what's going to help make your child intelligent. Brain development starts early, and it's very important to start, learning, getting your child to learn and process information very, very soon or early on.
And another thing that we also talk about in early development is also the importance of health. Proper nutrition.
Absolutely.
Sleep, avoiding sugary, high sugar diets, high fat diets, You know, those are the things too that we
Right.
we overlook so much. We just
Exactly,
think about, we just
exactly.
got pressure.
Right.
But the thing is that you have to create
Healthy
also a
diet.
healthy. We're
And
talking about a healthy
environment.
child. Yes.
A healthy diet, a healthy environment. You and your spouse, or you and your partner, or you and your village that's helped raising this child should, you know, be relatively on the same page. You should not skills early on.
And a value system that
Right.
supports
Right.
that.
You know, education is power. I mean, that is always going to be true. Doesn't matter what you have in your bank account or what your parents have. It's what you have up here, and so
And that's
it's
something.
very important.
That's something that no one can take from you.
Right.
No
one can take
They
from
can take property. They can take. You know. They can even take everything short of your life, but they cannot take your knowledge. And that's
Right.
something that, because once you've achieved that, you have that.
Right. And yeah, which brings me to the fact that the ultimate wealth, in my opinion, besides your health, besides good health, is your education.
Right, because that's self-generating. Because from that knowledge, from your mind, you can create wealth.
Right. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that we touched upon things that you may have wondered or may be interested in. And if we haven't, or if there's some other question or concern you would like us to raise, please leave a comment below. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and subscribe. And again, if you would like links to certain resources that we may have mentioned, please find my blog, www.habibatonowmd.com. So thank you again for watching.
Thank you.
And we hope to hear from you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye. God bless. So I hope you found this blog. Vlog. I was trying to say vlog. It said blog. So I hope you found this blog to be very informational and helpful. One thing that you can do is go ahead and go to Habiba MD.
You don't even know what side.
You looked at me and you threw me off. Man.
Smart kids.
All right. So I hope you found this vlog, how to raise smart kids.
This was not a vlog, actually. This
So
was
what
not
is
a vlog.
this?
A vlog is when you show what
So
your
what the hell
day,
you
what
call
you
this?
had done. This
What do you
is
call
just
this?
a video and information.
Oh, it's a video. They found this video to be very informational and helpful. Again, on raising a child and the different principles.
Raising a smart child.
Smart child. Well, what are we going to raise? Dumb children?
No, you know what? Actually, this brings
That's
up an
the next
important...
video.
No,